And we're back.
Hello.
We're back here at the Jackson Geo show.
We have returned for your listening pleasure, not viewing. I mean, you might be looking at us, watching us. We don't know you're here.
I'm pretty okay with that.
Okay, I mean, make yourself known. You can jump in if you want.
Yeah, man, we'd happily have lots of people on.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
We can do this in front of a live audience.
I think we could.
Okay, if we can have some more people besides probably our immediate family showing up to watch our live podcast session, we'd be down for that.
That'd be awesome.
First review of the show we've had so far was from I believe my mother, who said it was okay.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, I'm happy. She said she didn't say it was bad, and I'll take that as a compliment.
I will happily also take that compliment.
Now, we are in part 2 of the show. It is time for media, our media review. We either talk about book, movie, TV show, or random thing that we saw or maybe saw a long time ago or saw right before we recorded or saw in another life that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to because Jackson usually has the more intriguing piece of media, and I'm going to let him go first. What do you have to talk about with us today, Jax?
Well, I have a kind of a franchise, I suppose. I'd like to talk about a certain kind of a franchise. And I only say kind of, but well, it'll make sense. So what I wanted to touch on what started out as a series of films that I adore very much. And that is the Evil Dead series, which is a series of gore horror films that just tickle my fancy. And I'm a fan of gory horror. If I were 12, it might be a little concerning. Granted, that's when I first started watching these, but I digress. So here, let me give you. I have a bit of a story as to how I first got into these films.
Let us hear it.
So one day, my dad and I are just sitting watching TV together. And we were in a mood to put on our DVD for the first Robert Downey Sherlock Holmes film. And we just wanted to watch that, and we got in a mood. And at the time, the second one, the Game of Shadows sequel, was released on Blu-ray. And we were like, you know what, we're in a mood. Let's go out and get it. So we went out to Best Buy. And actually, at the time, it might have been Future Shop. And so we went to Future Shop.
What a throwback. I
right?
love that. I know. You know what? Can I just go on a little thing? I love browsing those stores. And I'm sad they took out the huge DVD sections. And I just go to Sunrise. But it's like, I remember when you used to go in those stores and there would be like literally rows and rows and rows of just DVD. And you know what the thing is? Now it's so hard to find specific stuff on DVD without ordering it online.
Yeah.
Then you can literally go there and they'd have anything. And if they didn't have it, they'd be able to order it.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay, my thing's over. Let's go back to your story.
Yeah, all right. And, so we went to Future Shop. We picked it up. We just started browsing around for a while. And, I know when this was. This was 2013. So I was 14 years old. And so we're browsing around, and I spot a 25th anniversary Blu-ray copy of Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. And I pointed that out to my dad. I said, Dad, aren't they making another one of those? And he looks at me. He's like, pick that up. And I was like, am I allowed to watch that? He's like, yeah, you're allowed to watch it. Pick it up. And I watched it that night, and it's all in history from there. I own all the movies now, and I suppose I should give a little bit of a backstory on the kind of a synopsis on the film, shouldn't I?
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and give a spoiler warning for the Evil Dead series. I will refrain from spoilers later in this explanation, as there are things that are much newer.
If you're listening to us, just maybe put us on mute. Or if you are looking for some audio to supplement, might I recommend? What should we recommend? I recommend maybe some Rush. We talked about Rush. Rush or Tragically Hit. Maybe throw on like one of their 4-minute or 6-minute songs, and you'll.
Hey, you could throw in one of their 20-minute songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Just about do it.
Pause, listen to an album, come back. You won't care about the spoilers.
That's correct. All right. So again, spoiler warning for the films that are over 30 years old now. But the first Evil Dead was, I believe, 1980, maybe early mid 80s.
Okay.
And it was directed by Sam Raimi, it starred Bruce Campbell, amongst other cast members, of course. Right. But the guy is Bruce Campbell. Although you don't really know that until the end of the film. And so, premise of the film, nothing you haven't seen before, but it was new for the time. And it's these friends going up to a cabin in the woods. Mm-hmm. And the main character, Bruce Campbell, who his character is Ash Williams, his sister finds they all find this recording that is accompanied by a book, which is called the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead. And of course, they got to read from the book, and these recordings include translations which summon these evil spirits.
Ooh! And
they start picking off everyone one by one. And interesting note about the first Evil Dead, which is called The Evil Dead, and the reboot was called Evil Dead. But The Evil Dead includes one of the it's not a movie death, but just one scene that very rarely does a movie make me cringe when looking at something. Like cringe in the good way, like, oh man, you guys are seriously getting me right now. Yeah. You know, not like cringe like that, and that was
like
gross.
A damn Daniel reaction.
Yeah.
As we talked about last show.
But this is gonna get a bit graphic. Oh, but there's one instance where gosh, I'm debating whether I should say it. It's very graphic, and it made me cringe. Okay, I'm just going to spit it out. Is there
lots of ketchup in the scene?
There is.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to spit it out. Okay, I'm going to give myself a count. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Ash's possessed sister takes a pencil and stabs one of their friends in the ankle, starts twisting the pencil around.
Oh.
Ah.
It's like, remember that pencil thing that was going around in school a few times where it's like, or not the pencil thing.
Yeah. It's like it's like in Aliens where when takes the knife and he starts stabbing the spaces between his fingers.
Yeah. And it's like, that's the upgraded version.
Yeah. And so that happened. That's one of I love that scene though, because it made me go, oh. But the movie ends, they all die.
Oh.
Well, kind of. And I say kind of because it got a sequel, of course.
Ooh.
And so the sequel starts.
The characters are dead, but the franchise isn't.
Yes and no. Well, it was weird here. There's a bit of a backstory to Evil Dead 2 as well, because when they wanted to make Evil Dead 2, they did it with a different company of some sorts. I'm not sure what the position of the company was, but they didn't have the rights to the Evil Dead.
Oh.
They didn't have the rights to their own movie, so they couldn't use the footage from the first film in the second one. And so what they had to do, they essentially reshot the entire first movie in a shortened, maybe like 10 minutes, like a short recap of the first film, and then you get to a point where it's exactly where the first film ends, and then it continues, and you're officially in the sequel, Dead by Dawn, and it's essentially just a big psych ward evaluation of Bruce Campbell's character of Ash Williams. You know, he's in this cabin, it's messing with him. You know, it possesses his hand. He cuts his hand off. And it's funny to me. It's a really funny movie to me. It's very slapstick humor. They're cult classics, these films. Oh, yeah. And more people come to the cabin, and they eventually expel these spirits, but not without creating this big wormhole that sucks in Ash Williams and his car to medieval times. All of a sudden, he's in medieval times.
Oh, man.
And then you find yourself in the third film, which is Army of Darkness, which is, I think, originally was supposed to be called Bruce Campbell versus the Army of Darkness.
Oh.
Although I don't think they ever officially did. I suppose you could still call it that. Mm-hmm. But
is that kind of like a fan title, like? In the fandom, that's what they refer to almost?
Yeah, I suppose so. Maybe. It got this whole series has such a large following. People don't even know it. They're cult classics for a reason. And so, Army of Darkness, it's a third in the trilogy it is now. Mm-hmm. And it's a journey of him trying to get back home. And but he unwillingly, or unbeknownst to him, rather, better term to use there, creates a clone of himself.
Really?
Because these evil spirits are still chasing him.
Okay.
And he creates a clone of himself, and then that clone becomes the antagonist, and then these people that in this big castle that he was in, and they go to war. They go to have a big battle, and good triumphs over evil, and Ash Williams gets teleported back home, and he kicks some more ass. And Army of Darkness has some of the most notable lines, I'd think, in film history, because it includes the line. Hang on, I got to back up so I can yell it. This is my boomstick. It has that line. It has like "Hail to the King, baby."
Oh,
it has that beautifully cheesy, intentionally cheesy Bruce Campbell line. And so that was the end of the main trilogy. I suppose, main trilogy, the trilogy, and then they rebooted it in 2013, just called Evil Dead, and it is amazing. It's one of the few reboots that are good at the moment. I would certainly say so. Bloody Disgusting named it, bloodydisgusting.com named it the best horror movie of the decade.
Oh.
And Sam Raimi was again in on it. He's been in on everything Evil Dead, as has Bruce Campbell, who made a cameo after the credits.
Now,
Evil Dead, he makes a callback to Evil Dead 2, another iconic line where he just says, groovy.
Now, I'm not sure if I'm 100%, but the name sounds familiar. Was Sam Raimi involved with any of the Spider-Man films?
He made the Spider-Man trilogy, all three of them.
Can I just say, it's not going to be what I'm going to talk, but just want a diversion. Best Marvel films, nothing that Marvel has put out so far has been anywhere near the quality of maybe the third one's debatable.
Yes,
but
the third one is debatable.
Those first two, I love them.
Me too.
They're great. They're fantastic movies. Anyway, I usually really dislike superhero stuff, but I love those. It's out of my system. Back to you.
Coincidence that Sam Raimi was in on all of those. And so he was, I believe, an executive producer on Evil Dead, the reboot. Ooh. And Evil Dead worked so well because it knew where it came from. There is extremely little to almost no CGI. It is like 99.9% practical effects. There's a scene at the more spoiler warnings. As we get closer to the most recent thing, I'll refrain from spoilers, but I gotta talk about this in full, because it's been 7 years. It's been at the very end, it like rains blood, and it's real. Well, it's not real blood, of course. It's practical.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's practical.
Just some Heinz ketchup, watered down Heinz ketchup.
The whole film is beautifully done. Again, I rave about how practical it was, and it once again, like the first film, had a moment that made me pleasantly cringe. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that. Thank you for that, though. And I'm treading on thin ice when I want to describe these. You know what? I'm not even going to describe it. Oh man,
leave it to that.
It's better than the first time. It's better than the first time. It got me much better. I so recommend it if you want like an old school horror experience that is nice and refreshing. It's so well done. It's very faithful to the original. I'm trying to recall if there's a callback to any of the other ones. Yes, there is. Around the very end, there's this evil deity of Jane Levy, who plays one of the main characters. Mm-hmm. What was her name? Mia. The main character's name was Mia, and she ends up being the last-minute heroine of the film, and she dispels this evil deity. Much like Evil Dead 2, she gets her hand ripped off. That was also a cringe moment that you can imagine how that happened. She got her hand stuck in her car. She had to rip her hand off under her car. And I'm not even going to describe the other one, though. God, it was gnarly. And so she takes the chainsaw and, again, just like Evil Dead 2, attaches her stumpy hand to this chainsaw. And we're going to censor stuff, right? Yes, we are.
For those who are listening now, you're probably listening to the censored version, but we have a online exclusive extended cut, and we have the radio version, because we are currently running on... we might be running on two, but as of recording this, we're only running on one local radio station. So
yes,
there
will be an uncensored cut, though, which works out great.
Which you could be listening to. You could be listening to the uncensored cut right now.
Thank you, by the way, for doing this.
Yes.
But here, this callback was so wonderfully executed. It was a callback to a line in Evil Dead 2 where there's a demon that Ash Williams has cut the head off, and it's still chirping at him, "I'll swallow your soul, I'll swallow your soul." And then he puts his foot on its throat and points a chainsaw at it and says, "Swallow this." Oh, yeah. And then in Evil Dead, she attaches a chainsaw to her stump, and this demon says, "I will feast on your soul." And she looks at it and says, "Feast on this, motherfucker," and just starts sawing the thing in half, and is beautiful and bloody, and I love the film so much. Which brings me finally to the most recent, now finished addition to the series. By the way, there was a video game in between Army of Darkness and Evil Dead. It wasn't good, I heard, but I'd love to try it anyways. Finally, the last on-screen thing was a television show on Sci-Fi called Ash vs. Evil Dead.
I think that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and that I will refrain from any spoilers. I won't give away anything to that because it's much more recent. And plus, Gio, you need to give us something because I've been going off for about 16 minutes here.
At least let me ask, what was the quality like on that?
It was amazing.
Okay.
It was an amazing show. Bruce Campbell plays Bruce Campbell. He's like... I don't have any ink on me, but I want my first complicated tattoo to be a portrait of him from Evil Dead 2. Here, I'm showing Gio right now.
I'm seeing this. I'm seeing the iconic image of it.
It's him just pretty cool. Maniacally laughing in Evil Dead 2. But the show, I'll give you how it starts. I won't give away anything else because again, I've been going on for way too long here, and it's much more new, so I won't give any spoilers. But it starts with him. He accidentally gets high and reads from the Book of the Dead and summons all these demons again, and he has to fix that problem. And Lucy Lawless is in it as well. Ooh. And she's amazing. She plays the antagonist. And that is all I will say about that, because I've gone on for too long. There's an Evil Dead video game in the works, and it's going to be great. Bruce Campbell is in on it, and it's going to be amazing. Gio.
All right.
Go nuts.
Okay. I was going to talk about something else, but I am decided to change mine to something more passionate because you are obviously passionate about...
Oh, yes. I was debating between talking about either that or Indiana Jones.
Well, next time we're going to do Indiana Jones because I think I'm going to have to hop on that.
Evil Dead has a perfect record so far, so I went with that.
Now, I'd like to talk about a show in my eyes that's perfect. A show that you've probably seen but technically haven't. It was very weird distribution-wise.
Okay.
I'm going to be talking about a show, and this name might spike up some memories for a few, but I'm going to be talking about a British television show from 1989, ran for only 13, 15-minute episodes, produced by Clearwater Features and Television South, a subsidiary of ITV. I'm going to be talking about a little series called Tugs.
Okay.
Now,
I think I've heard you talk about that before, but I don't know anything about it.
Hopefully I can convince you. So the show itself is a very interesting show. It's a very intricate show. It uses a format called, I guess, live action animation. And the show itself, I guess if I want to give you a visual image, but I'm trying not to turn viewers off because I feel like just mentioning this will turn off a ton of people. It's basically Thomas the Tank Engine with boats. But do not let that turn you off, because this is quite possibly one of the greatest children's or youth television series ever created.
Did you watch it growing up?
I did not watch it growing up. I only discovered it in my, I think around 2013. I stumbled upon it through another Canadian television show called Theodore Tugboat, which is very similar. Not as good as Tugs, but very good, wholesome children's television show. Love me, Denny Doherty. Denny Doherty, excuse me. But this whole show is a live action television show filmed with model boats. And it's an amazing production. Each of the show itself takes place in this harbor called Big City Port, and it's modeled after New York in the 1920s, right before the Great Depression. The main stars of the show are two tugboat fleets, the Star Tugs and the Zed Stacks. The Star Tugs are the main antagonists. They're the hero characters in this harbor. And they're often competing against the Zed Stacks, who are more of these villain characters, always trying to steal work. They have this thing about being devious, basically stealing work from these Star Tugs. And of course, the stars are the stars of the show, and they're like have all the key characters. The main number one tug of the fleet is a character called 10 Cents, and he works as a harbor tugboat or a harbor switcher. And then there's like there's a lot of other characters. There's Top Hat, who's like this very British refined tugboat who's a railway tug, and he's one of the weirder tugs. He has the ability. They each have faces on them. They're on their cabins, I guess, but he has the ability to raise his head, and they gave him a personality trait of being this big snob. He wears a monocle and top hat, and he has this feature. He thinks he's better than all the other tugboats.
Monocle, top hat, monocle.
Exactly. And then there's Big Mac, and they call him Big Mac because he speaks with a very deep Scottish accent.
Oh, neat.
And he's basically this hero of the show. And there's like Hercules, who is this huge boat. He's almost like this suave boat. He calls everybody "my dears," and he has a bit of a John Lennon look to him. He's got these kind of yellow sunglasses.
Oh,
He's got a bit of a hair swirl on him, and it's the show itself is so excellent because the show is, of course, has kind of a look to kind of draw on younger viewers, obviously with the boats with faces, but the stories themselves do not talk down to the viewer. They are not padded out. They are raw in a fantastic way, and they're deep, and the characters are written strong. They feel real. This doesn't feel like a children's television show. The characters feel real. The situations feel real. The setting feels extremely real. It has such a gritty, beautiful look to it. And the series has never been released on DVD or digital. It's only been released on VHS in the 80s, which has made me extremely upset. But it's such a beautiful written show. And these 13, 15-minute episodes are some of the best content I have seen come out of children's TV.
I guess it's not still running, eh?
Oh, definitely. It ended in 1980.
Oh, no, it's not. Oh, it did. Okay.
It had that run. And the thing is, I believe it was supposed to go, because this, I can't even start to talk about how absolutely
Please do.
huge,
I took up 17 minutes. Please go to town.
How absolutely huge this production is. Because these boats themselves, one of the smaller tugs, which is 10 Cents, is around 55 centimeters long.
Oh.
And he's one of the smallest Hercules, who I mentioned before, and he's actually based off a real tug in San Francisco. His model, I believe, is around a bit more than a meter long.
Holy cow.
And this set, I wish I can describe to you, it's almost, just think of a school gymnasium. That's how big one of them. And you can watch, there's a beautiful, if you go on YouTube after this, search up Tugs Behind the Scenes. There's a 5-minute almost documentary documenting how they built the show. Each tug costs around £900, I think, to make, if I'm going on.
Man, you said you brought up the Thomas the Tank Engine comparison, so I assumed these models must have been like small. Man, you're telling me they're huge.
Thomas the Tank Engine is a whole different story about cost and size. Like we have, you kind of think it's like a model train. It kind of fit in the palm of your hands. Those are huge too. That's another story. And just how beautiful this show looks. Even, and I can't play it, but the theme song, absolutely amazing too. It's like, it gets away with how good it is because it doesn't belong to, it shouldn't belong. This theme song and this stuff should not belong to what you see when you search up Google Images for Tugs. What's interesting is how the show got distributed. TVS had a financial problem. They went bankrupt in some capacity. That's why the series didn't continue after 30. That's the main. There's probably another story to it because after all that's built, I don't think it would be fine. It would be financially worse to cancel it after 13, in my opinion. But I don't know. That seems to be the biggest conclusion to why none were produced after that. But the series itself is amazing. All 13 episodes are on YouTube. In English and I believe in Japanese and Finnish as well. There's also some fan dubs that people have made of the show in other languages. There's I believe a Spanish version that someone made, and I think somebody made a Portuguese subtitled version.
Oh, okay.
But what's interesting is what happened after the show got finished. The footage copyrights and this is also a reason why it hasn't been put on DVD because the rights are all over the place. Footage copyright of the show was sold to Sunbow Entertainment. For those of you who don't know, they're a subsidiary of Hasbro, and they're responsible for making the G.I. Joe cartoons. They, I believe, made the My Little Pony cartoon. They made a show called The Tick. I think they did another one called The Brothers Flub. They've did a whole bunch of stuff, and they basically sold the footage rights for Tugs itself to be re-edited and recut into another show, and it was recut into an American television production called Salty's Lighthouse, which is if Tugs is my religion, Salty's Lighthouse is the Antichrist. They butchered Tugs.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
God,
Please laugh.
Awesome.
Salty's Lighthouse is such an inhumane thing to Tugs because they butchered this show beyond compare. They took 13, 15-minute episodes and edited them into 40 5-minute episodes.
Oh,
so they would deviate.
Oh, jeez.
One of the episodes is called, so what would happen is it takes place in this lighthouse, and it's animated, and then there's these animated characters. There's Salty, this little kid. There's this octopus called Ocho. There's this there's a crab called Claude. I guess there's a character called Anchovy, who's like, I guess the other human. That's like all nautical stuff, very, very corny. But there's this character called Seymour Viewer, and it's spelled not like Seymour. It's SEA more, Seymour C.
Okay.
So, but when the character it's like an average kids TV
Seymour.
show. Yeah, basically steam can. But when a character has a problem, like they have, there's an episode of like, oh, I'm too small to be included. The binoculars comes walking up, and it's like, oh, let's see what the Tugs are doing. So the binoculars blink, and the camera zooms in, and they cut to these Tug segments, which are absolutely butchered the original footage.
Oh, jeez.
Watch one episode, and I want to do a live thing of showing this guy beside me an episode of Tugs and an episode of Salty's Lighthouse. They basically, the footage goes from night to day because they cut up this footage so badly. They deviate from the source material so much. There's certain scenes from episodes that they reuse again and again and again. There's an episode called Trapped where a character called Zug, a character from the Zed Stacks, crashes a ship between a water channel, and none of the boats on the other side can go through. Mm-hmm. They've used that point in so many episodes of like, oh no, there's a tanker in the way. I can't get through this water channel in episode 1. And then they blow it up. An episode like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I remember I wrote it down because I was originally, they used that one scene in, let me just see how many episodes. Because I remember I went through them. They used it in episode 1, episode 8, episode 11, episode 15, and episode 20. And basically episode 39. Episode 1, episode 15, episode 21, episode 30, episode 39. They used it in the first episode and the last episode. So what a way to tie it up. There's an episode called Munitions, and in that episode, it's one of my favorites. There's a character called Blue Nose who's basically representative of this basically ignorant naval tug, and he starts a fire at one of the docks. There's explosions. They cut that up and use that in a couple of episodes. But I wish I can talk about this more, and I want to do another episode where I just divulge into Salty's Lighthouse rather than Tugs because of how interestingly bad it is.
Yeah.
But it's such a weird show. Tugs is amazing. All 13 episodes are uploaded to YouTube. You should go watch it. God, it's so beautiful. It's an absolutely wonderful show. And so many people have discounted it for the fact that it looks like Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh,
but
sure.
won't actually watch the show and just get that judgment of it like, oh, it's meant for toddlers. It's meant for preschoolers. They're going to watch that. It's meant to learn their ABCs 1, 2. It's such a beautifully written and beautifully produced show. And I hope that anybody who listens to it at least gives it a chance and watches it at its face value of what it is. Quality programming, quality with a budget, and something like Tugs will never happen again because no broadcaster is willing to sink in that much money to produce models, sets, characters, and stuff like that in something that can be done in CGI. Tugs is a landmark, a bookmark in television, in children's television, in the history of television, and it will never happen again, and we should appreciate those 15, 13-minute... Well, there's 4 episodes that are cut in for 20 minutes, but that's not the point. We should appreciate these 13 episodes as gold and appreciate how even though... I would kill for a second season. I would kill for a second season. But even though that's all we have, how amazing this show was produced, how beautiful it is, how great the voice acting is, how great the writing is, how great the music is, how great the sets are, how great the footage is, how beautiful it looks. And it's just a feat of television that will never repeat itself and should be appreciative at every single moment. I love Tugs, and that's it for my Tugs rant. Hopefully one day, I'm praying the show gets released on DVD, because the VHS copies that I have and other people have been transferring look like absolute garbage.
No kidding.
For such a beautiful looking... Oh, excuse me, I just had to... hopefully that'll make it into the blooper reel. It's such a wonderful show, and a contrast from what we talked about previously, but
Yeah.
such a great production. And just, if you can, hopefully I've convinced, take 15 minutes or 20 minutes at least. If I have to give you a key episode to watch the episodes High Winds and Big City Freeze. 2 of the greatest episodes of the show. Or watch all, like, I think you can binge it like within 3 or 4 hours. It's the best 4 hours you'll ever spend. I've literally watched these episodes so many times. I could read off the dialogue from episode 1 to the end of episode 13 right here on the podcast. And that's it for Tugs. And I hope, well, thanks for coming to my Tugs talk. Hopefully I've convinced someone to give it a go. I think get over the way it looks and appreciate it. That's all I have to say. Get over the way it looks and appreciate it for what it is, and you will not be sorry.
And thank you for listening to my evil TED talk.
Yes.
Wasn't that the duality of man right there?
Exactly. I think,
and yet equal amounts of love.
Exactly. And we both have an equal amount of love. Our best friend podcast over
for
here.
Each other.
Exactly.
Hell yeah.
And I guess we're going to have to wrap it up there. Do you want to take the ending, Jackson?
Well, Gio, this was cool.
It was very
Again,
cool.
I say this every week as if it's a shock. But again, as it will be next week, a blast and a half.
Yes.
Because that was fun to just go to town on one of my favorite things ever.
And to interrupt, we have to give our social medias. Would you like...
Yes. 'Cause we have Twitter now.
Yes, we have a Twitter.
We have a Twitter. You can find us at JaxGio. That's capital JAX and capital GIO on Twitter.
And we're working on an Instagram and Facebook
That's right.
page. And we will hopefully have those up soon. Jesus, I'm out of breath from talking about Tugs. Oh my goodness. I would like to do, hopefully in future we'll have an episode. Maybe I watch The Evil Dead live. Maybe we'll watch an episode of Tugs live. Maybe I can torture Jackson and watch Salty's Lighthouse.
I'd be down for that.
And this is it for now. We hope you enjoyed our we went from Bank of Canada to pencil being shoved in thigh to talking tugboats. Goodbye.
See you next week.